good night, ladies and gentlemen. One and all, welcome to the best place to be on a Thursday night. Once there's no message from the Prime Minister, the best place to be on a Thursday night. We are here live on Thursday Night Talk, sponsored by TSR Construction. TSR Construction. And I just want to welcome all of my guests, we have a wonderful presentation for you tonight, a wonderful presentation. We're looking at disaster readiness. You know, we are in the time of many storms, many hurricanes, many things can happen. And we just want to have a discussion tonight around the topic, a disaster readiness. And we have with us Mr. Winford Austin from the Barbados Red Cross Society. And we will have as I said before, a wonderful discussion for you. As you know, we would like to begin with a word of prayer. So we're asking all of you on YouTube, all of you on Zoom, to just bow your heads with us as we pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks as usual, because everything, Lord, it is in your hands. You are the creator, you are the sustainer. And we pray, Lord, that as we live in this hurricane season, that we will be prepared whatever comes our way, whether it is a spiritual storm or a physical storm. We ask for your protection and guidance and help us to be prepared. I ask that you will guide and direct the technology, guide and direct the electricity, the internet, what we have to say, what we have to broadcast, what we have to share with our listeners, our viewers. So we ask that you will take control tonight in Jesus' precious name. Amen. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Thursday Night Talk. I am your host, Justin Aline, and we are looking at disaster readiness. In studio with me from the Barbados Red Cross Society is Mr. Winford Austin, and he's the disaster manager at the Barbados Red Cross. And we are excited, we're elated to be here with you another Thursday night to discuss something that is very, very important to us here in the Caribbean, here in Barbados. And we want to welcome all those persons in Barbados, in the region, internationally as well, because our audience extends throughout the world, and we just want to welcome you. As usual, for those of you who are on Zoom, we have a producer on Zoom. The producer on Zoom will take your questions. So you, as you listen to the show, you formulate the questions in your mind, you type the questions in the chat box, and our producer there on Zoom will take the questions for you. And then for those of you who are following us on YouTube, as usual, type your questions in the YouTube space, in the chat area, and the producer there will compile them, and at the appropriate time, my co-host will come and ask the questions to Mr. Austin. So Mr. Austin, welcome to the St. Thomas District of Seventh-day Adventists, and we are elated to have you into this discussion. We are talking about hurricane preparedness. And so tell us about yourself, Mr. Austin.
Justin, thanks very much for the warm welcome, and to the people at the St. Thomas chapter, and to viewers, listeners, whatever form you are in here. And it's good to be part of this session. Winford, Richard, whichever names, whatever you know me as, call me, and Ilanza. I've been with the Barbados Red Cross since January of this year. I retired from the Bermuda Police Service in October last year. I did 37 years with Bermuda Police. And within my last 5 or 6 years, I was also a member of the Bermuda Red Cross. And my whole career and the ending of my policing career and into Red Cross has always been along in lines of disaster management, disaster response. So coming back here, you know, being offered a role here with the Barbados Red Cross, I said, yes, this is something I can work with. And in this role, my thing is to look at building the organizational capacity, both to be prepared and to respond in times of a disaster. So that's my main focus. But to achieve this, you know, I'm focusing on our internal capacity first of all, but with that, I'm also coordinating and partnering with a variety of local stakeholders within the disaster response and disaster management field here. And key among them is fostering a good, strong relationship with the Department of Emergency Management. and all the other entities that come under the DEM, right? Also being community minded, because you can't do this without the community being involved. So community engagement, different initiatives with some communities, that is part and parcel of it. And most of all, we can go to all these wonderful plans and stuff like that, but you got to sometimes you have to, in the realm of preparedness, you got to test them. So you got to be involved in different scenarios, simulations, and stuff like that. So all these are my areas where I'm focusing in on.
All right, lovely, sir. Lovely to have Mr. Winford Richard Austin. For those of you who affectionately know him as Richard, you can call him Richard. You can call him Mr. Austin or Mr. Winford, either way. So we're really happy.
Leave the mister.
All right, sir.
All right.
All right. So all the churches at Welchman Hall, Bel Air, and Jackman's, which make up the St. Thomas district, and we have also other church members who are joining us from around the Seventh-day Adventist spectrum, and as well there are other denominations who join us from time to time. We're very happy to have you locked on to Thursday Night Talk, the best place to be on a Thursday evening. Now, so Mr. Richard, now let us talk about the Red Cross. Why is the Red Cross involved with or linked with the DEM and the disaster management aspect of it?
Let's go way back to some history also with Red Cross in general. The Red Cross come out of any disaster that you could really find, and that's war. War, it was born out of war, and being able to maneuver within the fields of war without you're taking sides. And when it comes now specifically to disaster management as we know it, when you look around the world, one of the first organizations and the consistent organization that you see in whatever disaster it may be, hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever natural man-made disaster, the Red Cross is up front and center. Right? Here in Barbados, we have a similar role to perform as Red Cross organizations across the world, but we are legislated as an auxiliary to government. So we do not take over from government. We are not here to outdo government. We are not here to compete with government or any of the government agencies. We support government and whatever it's doing. And the Department of Emergency Management, that has the lead role in disaster response and disaster management here in Barbados. So we will partner with them. We make sure that that partnership is strong, that we know what it's about. We got clear understandings, so that it is a seamless partnership. And I think that's the way that we are really pushing. And over this season so far, that's where we are working, and that's where we are heading.
All right, so we've laid the foundations. We know what the Red Cross is born out of and who they are and what they are doing. Now tell us, as it relates to your role, tell us about your role now in the Red Cross, and then we will then go on to start to talk about the actual preparedness.
Again, when they're looking at mine coming in, I'm looking to see where the Barbados Red Cross is right now. What our strengths, what our weaknesses are, and let's build upon those stuff, right? We need to establish proper partnerships with different people around Barbados. Yep, let's get those partnerships going, right? We need to be engaging communities. What has happened, we are doing this all now within the context of COVID-19. So our community engagement cannot be as robust, and it can't be as it used to prior to COVID-19. We can't be out there in the communities as we used to be, with the face-to-face, right in the community as we normally would do. So that has been a difference. So what we've been doing, especially we are working through the communities, through these district emergency organizations, and we've hosted already some community training for the DEOs, the district emergency officers, so that they could go into the communities when called on. Right? And that's where we are focusing right now, working within the COVID-19 context. And by that, so we're getting our guys prepared, making sure our volunteers, if they need to go out there, they're given the proper protective equipment that is necessary, whatever protocols that they need to observe when they go in the field, that they're aware of them. And so it is not a setback now, and everybody will be embracing of you physically. But the work that we do before, it is even more important that it is done now. Because what COVID-19 has done, I think has exposed a lot more vulnerability than we accustomed to seeing. And with that, with the hurricane season right on us, right? More and more now that you have to be more vigilant and cognizant of a lot more people can be impacted if a hurricane, any storm system comes through that might not have been impacted prior to COVID.
Got you, sir. All right, so let's start now. Let's go right into your Lady Foundation for us as it relates to who you are, the Red Cross, what the Red Cross is about, how it links to the disaster emergency management section. And then also now let's talk about how should we get ready. Let's talk about the actual preparedness. How should Barbadians, how should Caribbean people start to prepare for a storm, a hurricane of that nature? How should we prepare?
Don't wait for the first news bulletin that comes along and say there's a system brewing in the Atlantic. Start our preparations way before then. And the things that you can do, we can look at it from whether it's government level, organization level, or the house and the business level, right? So all these different entities have different layers and different methods of preparing. But one thing that would be consistent for all is to have a plan, right? I think that would be the consistent thing. You must have a plan for whatever the emergency may be. Know what the hazards are within your community, within your home, within your island. So we are now in hurricane season, so let's narrow it down and focus it on hurricanes. So that's where we're going to be. So you should have a plan. And that plan, it could be nice written up. Red Cross sites around the globe, in International Federation of Red Cross, the DEM, most international recognized organizations have templates of plans and stuff. You can easily download one, customize it to suit your own circumstance. So like I said, whether you're an organization, you're just a home, you're a business, whatever the case may be, you can get one to suit you and customize it to suit you. But start with that plan. Share that plan with everybody, whether it's in your household, whether it's in the business, and country-wise, so everybody should know what your community plan is. If they need to evacuate, if there's need, to do whatever, you should be aware of what that plan is. Rehearse it, right? So this is where you start, right? Having that plan, sharing it with everybody that's within that circle, and rehearsing it. The contents of that plan now is something different, and that the contents now is specific to you and your environment, right? So then that's where you can go. So within the plans, we're talking about hurricanes consistently. We're talking about how much, know what your home is susceptible to. Is it strong enough to withstand, the winds? Is your roof likely to go? Is it likely to be flooding in your area? Is flooding the hazard? So all these are different things that you put into your plan according to what the hazard is. So yes, a storm will impact all of us, but the specific hazard to you might be different to somebody else.
Okay, great. So let's get in now to the specifics now. So, in Barbados, we are living in even though we are a small island, we are still big in different contexts. Now, this is the context I'm referring to big now. Now, we have, persons live in low-lying areas, prone to flooding. And then you have persons now living in areas now where, so let's start with the flooding. So let me go get into the other aspects. Right. I live in a flood-prone area. This is an example. How should I prepare? Let's talk about preparing for persons who live in low-lying areas, flood-prone areas. How should I prepare?
And again, one of the things that you can easily do, you could do your part to minimize what flooding can come to you. You can't stop the rain, you may not be able to stop the water, but if you go, for argument's sake, something as simple and be proactive, getting your drainage cleans and stuff like that, that helps with the flooding and stuff like that. Okay, you've done all of that, so now the water is coming in. how would you get out, right? So know beforehand. It'd be good to have some early warning system that can alert you that there's flooding in your area. Although the rain might be falling, it may not be flooding, right? And vice versa. You may not see that level of rain, but the water is coming from somewhere else. And now the flood waters are starting to rise. So that is what you need to be focusing on. So key for you now is how do you get out of your home? What is your evacuation routes? So you must know those. And that's where you can work with your district emergency officers, find out what your evacuation routes are with the police, with Ministry of Works and Communications. So those are the people that you will have to work with to know your evacuation routes. Where are you going, right? If there are shelters in your area, you got high ground in your area. Do you need to go for a long period of time, or you just need to wait it out, or it flood now, and then an hour later, that water will recede and go to the sea or wherever it needs to go, right? So those are the things that you need to know. So be proactive in knowing the geographic layout of your area.
Okay, so knowing the geographic elements of our area, knowing where to go and to who to go to as well. So in case, right, so in case the area is flooded, we know how to get to or how to get out and so on. Now, let's look at the aspect now of something happens now. Who do I call? Who do I call? Do I call you, sir? Do I call Mr. Austin? Who do I call when there's a flood?
No, we are not the first line of response. And that's why we are not the first line of response. I think we can go to if you're connected with your DEO, right? Or I think is the emergency when the DM activates its emergency center, they'll give you that emergency contact number to call. They're all under the Government Information Service. So they have a good listing of who to call, when to call. And most of all, once that emergency center is activated, then you will have that national number. It will flash across, so therefore, listen to the announcements from GIS in particular, from your radio stations, let's call them media outlets, so not just radio stations anymore, from the different media houses, right? So they'll be flashing the emergency numbers. So a number that you may call today when there's a regular flooding, it will be different to when you will call in terms of a national emergency.
Okay, good. So let us, and there's a reason why I asked that deliberately. I asked that deliberately so that we can get out all of the necessary information. So because sometimes in cases like this, and especially now with COVID, we can suffer from information overload. So I just want us to take it a step by step as we go along. So we're dealing with now with various hazards. So now we're looking at the fact now we have a flood in my area and I need to call somebody. So even because it is let's say it's a storm, and so you're saying, I know, remember we are speaking to a wide audience, so we got to make sure that, I know in government workers, we like to make things, we like to use things like DEO. So we got to make sure we explain what DEO and the DEM and all those kind of things, right? So for us, if I am trapped in my home, but my phone lines are up, who should I call?
I lost you there, your phone lines.
So my phone line is up. My phone line is up, but I'm suffering from, there's a challenge with the flooding in my area. Who should I call? And then, because you spoke to what should I do? So we are looking at who should I call. So you're saying, listen to the GIS programs, listen to all those things, and then call those individuals. So you're talking about the DEOs. So explain to us now who the DEOs is, or what do they do?
The DEO is the District Emergency Organization. How Barbados is broken down into for purposes of emergencies. Each constituency has what is called a district emergency organization responsible for responding to the emergency needs of that particular constituency. Now, the DEOs have volunteer people working for them. They are called district emergency officers. Maybe this is where it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. So a DEO, which is the organization, and a DEO, which is the individual volunteer. So sometimes when you hear them use, I'm glad you brought this point up. Make sure we clarify the context in which it's being used. So a
Right.
DEO is the, when it's called a DEO, that might be an individual person that volunteer for that, who mans that area, right? So you know who these persons are. But remember, he's not the person that's gonna come and deal with your flooding. So you should be needing to call somebody, whether it's the fire department, or anybody in line like that. Those are the agencies now. So that is who you need to be calling now, right? For
Right.
flooding in your area.
For flooding in the area.
Fire department and those people that come and assist with flooding. The BDF always got, the search and rescue people that's up there, roving teams and stuff like that. So all these are the different entities that are out there. But
right.
the thing about it is to make sure that we know that once these things, put it on the national level where it's a national emergency, right? Yeah. All that call will be really coming into that national center. So rather than you go search for this number for this one person or this one organization, you have a central number where it comes in, and they dispatch it out to the organizations that are sitting right there in that office.
Great. Because that becomes a lot easier for persons, because when you're in a panic mode,
yeah.
you don't want to be searching for all these things. You just want one specific number that you'll be calling, and then person will help you, because it is easy to say 211 for the police, 511 for the ambulance, and so on, 311 for the fire. So the thing is now, one specific number for you to call when there is an emergency.
Yeah.
And that was then once you explain your situation, then they will tell you that, okay, this person will come to you and assist you. So we spoke about the DEOs as the individuals and the DEOs as the organization itself. Now, as it relates, now let's go now into actual hurricane is coming. Mm-hmm. So you spoke to the fact that, the persons tell us to get our water, get our non-perishables and stuff. So let's talk about a plan, a specific plan for the listeners, the average Bajan who's listening to this plan. Let's go a detailed plan of what we should get.
And always, and the reason why water is so heavily emphasized, with all the rain and stuff that's coming down, it also churns up a lot of different stuff in the water supply. So you want safe drinking water that you can use to cook if you need, if it comes that far, right? Then again, you might also need water if you got any little cuts and to clean yourself up, for hygiene purposes and stuff like that, right? Remember sometimes that right now we're also in a drought situation here in Barbados. So all these have to be taken a little bit further into context. So they keep telling you the average is about maybe 3 gallons, a 3-day supply of water, equivalent to about 1 gallon per person per day. Right? Again, know your household and how many people are in your household and stuff like that. When you got children, especially people with medical needs and stuff like that, that amount can go up a little bit more, but you're likely to be using more water, right? So water for sure. Again, we talk about food. The key about food again is you don't want food that likely to spoil on you. That's the key. So don't go buy meats. Don't go stock up on the meats. Right? So when we talk about the non-perishable foods, it's easy to, decent canned stuff, your crackers, your bread and stuff like that. Things that will not go bad. Liquids that you don't need to put in a refrigerator, right? Those are the sort of stuff that you need to be stocking up on. Some high energy foods, not necessarily just the snacks, but some high energy foods. And again, too, when you have children, always factor in children and elderly persons with medical needs. So you always must have food specific for them also. Again, within that, always have a first aid kit, right? So It's easy to get cut, to get punctured, all these little things can happen up to you. You're moving around, debris could be flying around, something gets in your eye, stuff like that. You can't get out to get to the hospital as easily as normal. So you take care of your own medical needs. So have, a good quality first aid kit, with a variety of stuff in there, right? So, and along with that first aid kit, also, again, make sure all those persons in there on specific medication, that their medication is stocked up prior to the onset of any system. Right? So that is quite crucial. Again, you can't get out, you can't get to the pharmacy, you can't get back to the hospital in a time in a hurry. So you need to stock up beforehand. Yeah, power tools, power can go quite easily. So you need things like, a lot of wrenches, pliers and stuff, a lot of hand operated tools. That's something that you need, right? And most of all, again, your flashlight, your torches, and there's some good quality flashlights and stuff out there. You don't always have to be filling and changing the batteries. Oops, oh, the power is gone. I can't find the batteries, right? So you have a lot of these things out there that they are good quality, and the power on these things are phenomenal nowadays. A radio, we are so much into a technology age today that the minute electricity goes, all of our, systems go down also, right? So still have that radio, that battery operated radio, right? The old transistor radio, those things still have value when it comes to hurricane season, right? Uh, Look at, when you come now to some things that is often overlooked, we always worry about protecting the house, but where's our paperwork, right? Where's our documents for the house insurance, the contents of our homes and stuff like that? Again, think about your own selves. You're gonna need some cash. System to go down, banking systems. You can't go and use the ATMs. You can't get online to do transactions, so you need some cash, right? Also, your different IDs, your different, all these things are also consider all these things, put them, get them secure, and get a haversack, something that you can easily grab if you have to move out. If, we talked about flooding earlier, if you have to just get out the house as quick as possible, you're able to just reach behind you, grab and go. And that's what we call them, a grab and go bag. So you need something that you can put in your bag, and when stuff is happening, you can grab it, go. Right? Don't forget the children there. So grab them and go with them also. Right?
Right.
So those are some of the basic stuff that you need in your own, right? When you're doing your plan, and the physical stuff that you need to be concerning yourself with.
Okay, great. Now so we have the plan. We talk about that. Let's talk about as let's put a scenario here where we have a challenge in Barbados, and we can't speak to things like this in the past because systems have passed us, thank God. But dealing in your situation, have you ever dealt with challenges where there's wide scale flooding, or any challenges where there's a wide scale a lot of houses are blown down, or persons are challenged? How would you guys respond to that in your capacity?
I'm going to share your personal experience that I went through in Bermuda in 2003. I was still a police officer then, when we had Hurricane Fabian struck Bermuda. It was at Category 3 level, right? I was working in the control room then, and a situation developed on the bridge where a police car, not a civilian car, they got stuck on the bridge. I happened to try to render some assistance to them, but it was too, we never got a chance to do it, right? So what happened then, so 4 people lost their lives, including 3 police officers, right? A lot of devastation, physical devastation to homes, to the airport, to lots of buildings, police buildings. So some of the strongest buildings and stuff that and they're even stronger than the ones that we have here in Barbados, generally speaking, right? So you're seeing the devastation that, the physical devastation that can be done, to buildings and the human toll it takes, right? So when a system is, forecasted to impact you, really, really, really listen and pay attention to what the forecasters are telling you. It's no joke. Sometimes people say, man, I want to see a storm come. It sounds good, but the reality of it is totally different, right? So the thing about it is, and for Red Cross and for any organization in the disaster response, and management areas, yeah, you don't want people to be out in systems like that, because what happens then is that you're putting others at risk. Right? That's the first thing. They are duty bound to try to come and assist you. So what happens then, if they have to be focusing now on trying to come in, because at the onset of a storm, the unpredictability is beyond what we all can plan for, right? So a lot of times what will happen, and we've seen reports of systems, across the globe, where at the onset of a storm, then all of a sudden people are saying, well, oh boy, I should have evacuated when I had the chance. When they told me to leave, I should have left, right? So then it might look heroic when you can see a helicopter flying in and whisking people off roofs and stuff like that. We don't have those capabilities here, right? So the reality is that, during the onset of a system, and depending on its severity, you could be, battling things on your own if things are that much. So the Red Cross, even the other responding agencies, they'll come in and do those rapid assessments after, and then try to get the support there. So, but it is actually unfolding. That's when, everybody should be backing down.
Okay. All right. Great. Now tell us about, in these kind of circumstances, how important it is to learn first aid, and especially, you guys are very, very important in this capacity, where you guys train persons in first aid. So tell us about the importance of learning first aid in this environment we are in now, called hurricane season.
Yeah, and again, the importance there is, yeah, you can help somebody. It might even be yourself, right? By the skills that you learn, yeah, you can put them into practice there. You don't need to be a doctor. You can just deal with it right there and then. And it's a very comforting and reassuring to know that somebody is skilled, in first aid, that they could come and assist you straight away. It saves lives for sure. No two ways about it. And again, with the COVID environment, we've had to scale back, on the first aid interactions and stuff that we've had, the first aid training. But things are starting to reopen, and if not by the end of this month into September, we will be restarting our first aid training. So so who's still looking for it? We are still here.
Yeah, for my certification ran out a year ago, and I'm happy to hear the news that you guys are restarting, because especially now in this era, where we have storms at rapid rates and so on, climate change, those kind of things. So we have an increase of storms, we have massive droughts, all those kind of things. Anything can happen at any given time, and then to assist someone in your community is also something that is really, really important. So that is why I would encourage all of my listeners, all of my viewers, if you need to have your first aid to be recertified in the first aid, you need to come to the Red Cross here in Warrens, right? You're still in Warrens?
Oh, yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
Right. I was trained in the Warrens area. Also, my producer, Paul Cullimore, he was also trained along with myself as well. So all of the members from the Benchmore Hall Church, from the Bel Air Church, from the Jackman's Church, any of our listeners, you need to be trained in first aid. It saves lives. Now, I just want to, before we get some more questions to you, sir, I just want to encourage our viewers, our listeners, remember, for those of you who are in Zoom, you can place all your questions in the chat. For those of you who are on YouTube, you can place all your questions on YouTube, so that we can have asked all of the questions to a knowledgeable gentleman in Mr. Austin. And I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, this information is valid, it is vital, it saves lives. Now, so we spoke to the floods. Now let's talk about the hurricanes. Now, you know we hear about category 1, or even before we get to the hurricanes, let's talk about storms.
Yeah.
So you know you hear things over the radio, you get a lot of bulletins. So especially now on WhatsApp, there are a lot of persons who are now meteorologists now by WhatsApp definition, meteorologists. So you see all the information, storm watch, storm warning. So can you help us to understand the difference with all these categories of storms and hurricanes and so
on? And that's very critical what you're hitting on there. Know the different definitions that come along, what they mean, because knowing them means that you should be prepared to take certain courses of action, right? So, and the thing there is, right, when you hear especially a watch, anything with a watch, it basically tells you get ready, right? When you hear a watch, you get ready. Warnings, you should be ramping up, finishing up your whatever preparations you're starting, right? And storm, again, storm as opposed to hurricane. Remember, the storm is the lower, meteorologically, it's the lesser of the two, right? So a storm, you got your winds, between what 39 miles an hour. That's the threshold to start as a storm. When you're talking about a hurricane, they're a higher scale. So that's what you're gauging. So a hurricane force winds will always be greater than storm force winds, right? And it's just the timings. Warnings are particularly issue anywhere when something at least within 12 hours or so. So the more you hear about a warning, that system is closer to you, right? A watch, you have a little bit of time, 36 hours or so away. So you can see the time to prepare. So when you hear a warning out, it's not time to go out there and now let me see what I have to do. You should already be nailing down what you have to do. So all your stuff should be just about finished when you get into a storm or hurricane warning.
Okay. Is it possible for you to explain, like, you talk about the watch, the warnings, and so on. Can you tell me from the smallest to the largest as it relates to the categories? So does it start with a storm watch or storm warning? Can you take us through the natural progression or the severity of it, starting from the something minor to something major?
Going from there, we see what was just notes coming across the Atlantic right now, right? You see the monitor a tropical wave, right? Then that wave becomes a depression, right? From that depression, will become a storm, right? So once that storm is formed, so now you got your winds, your winds 39 miles per hour, and up above. I think the 74 miles an hour is then when you start talking about hurricane force, right? So anything between 39 and 70 and 73, that's a storm, right? So you get your watches, the watches and warnings are issued based on how close they are coming to Barbados, right? They have nothing to do with the size of the storm. If it's passing, 1,000 miles away, 200, 500 miles away from Barbados, there's no need to issue those warnings and those watches, right? So that's the key. It's to do with the distance in which it's coming or is forecasted to come to within Barbados reaches, right? So when you hear a tropical storm watch, that would be first. When you hear that, that would be the first alert that you really know start to get to preparation and say, let's kick into gear. This thing is really coming our way, right? But and I'm going to quickly digest to something you said just now about all the different sources out there of weather information, right? Everybody can switch on the phone, go online, and find a different weather app, a different weather source, all with the same system. But just remember the official one for Barbados, those are issued by the Barbados Weather Service, the Met Office as we call it. And then we get through the Government Information Service here, they'll be pushing up the bulletins, and they'll be taken up by the local media. So that is where you start to follow that lead, right? So now we get a tropical storm warning. The watch has come through. It's getting a little bit closer now. So next thing they might issue is a warning, right? That once everything stays within the storm range. But also remember, and I'm not going to get too meteorological at this stage, because right, even within a storm, you might find a hurricane watch can be issued also. Because remember, winds can gust, although it might be, we say 73, right? But the gust can be higher, right? So a gust can come through at 80, right? So don't just get bogged down because a storm warning is in effect, that you won't get a hurricane force winds coming through, right? So those are the things, but so don't get too bogged down in what I'm telling you, right? You can develop this a little bit closer and a little bit more when we get people from the Met Office to come in, and then they could talk specific about all the different watches and warnings. But this is where it goes. So now we got the storm warning has come through. All right, that's great for storms. Hurricanes, so it follows the similar path, right? As a hurricane is likely to impact the Barbados area, they'll issue a hurricane watch, and then the closer it gets, the more likely it will impact Barbados. Then they will go to hurricane warnings. And again, the same progression of when it's the same thing. And once a hurricane watch or hurricane warning is issued, it doesn't go up. Don't care what the category of the hurricane moves up to, right? It just is a hurricane watch or hurricane warning. So it doesn't go, a hurricane watch for a category 1 for a category 5 is going to be any different. It will be that one alert, a hurricane watch or hurricane warning.
All right, great. So let us go back a bit as it relates to the preparation aspect for these things. And we're hearing it in our radios, we're hearing to get ready, we're doing all those stuff. Now, let's talk about shelters as it relates to getting ready. So we're living in, and let's give some examples. Can you give us the examples of the shelters? You know, sometimes you hear about things and you know to go through one ear and come through the next. Now you have persons right in front of you. Let's talk about the hurricane shelters and why we should go to hurricane shelter.
And you only go to a hurricane shelter first and foremost if you absolutely have to go, right? Your home is, totally at the risk of the elements, right? You have no other place to go within your community. No friends nearby. They can't support you. No family to go to. Then at the last resort, will you go into a shelter? And again, right now within the whole COVID context, shelters are not. Shelters have their limitations. They have all the protocols that will be in place. Right? So consider what you have to take to a shelter, right? Yeah. Are you sick? Do you have any sickness, any ailments that would, impact, you going to a shelter? So all these are the considerations that you have to take when you talk about going to a shelter. So it's really a last resort, right? But if you have to go, right, know where your shelter is, right? And it's shelters are generally schools, could be church, any religious buildings, could be community centers. And the GIS, the government information website, they have a list of their hurricane shelters for 2020. And we get away from calling them just hurricane shelters. They're emergency shelters, so they're not just for hurricanes alone, right? But those shelters, you should really consider a shelter as a last resort and not a first resort.
Okay. All right, just letting our viewers and our listeners know that very soon my colleague Nicholas Bedford will join us with the questions. So if you have your questions, you can send them to me on WhatsApp if you have my WhatsApp number, or if you can place them in the chat, in the Zoom chat, or you can place them in the YouTube chat. We have producers on each side to send them. So I'm just giving you just about 30 seconds. So at this time, I just want to let you know we are sponsored by TSR Construction. TSR Construction in Lower Estate. If you need anything built, call TSR Construction. TSR Construction. Call Sherman Walker at 241-0529. TSR Construction. We are sponsored tonight by TSR Construction, Lower Estate in Christ, Lower Estate in St. George. Sorry, and we are talking about hurricane and building. And if you look at all these pictures, call TSR because all of these buildings are hurricane ready. Now, obviously, you can build structures and winds can blow them down easily, regardless of however strong you think you may build them, right? So tell us about, building, the aspects of building. What should we, the things that we should have in our roofs and those kind of things. Not getting too technical, but if you can speak to some general things that we need to have. You're building your home, you want to get hurricane ready. What are the things that we're supposed to do?
And again, what you're saying is that ultimately you can put as much steel and as much concrete as you want in the building, and when these systems are ready, they just shred it like paper mesh, right? But the stronger material you can have, it is always good, So always try to build better, again, build better, build stronger, and build with the environment in mind, It doesn't make any sense, you're building something that, as it looks fancy and stuff like that, but it can't sustain anything. It doesn't provide the shelter that you really want. So you're really building for shelter, and so pay attention to your roofs. And I know a lot of hardware stores, they sell roof straps and stuff like that, hurricane straps that can assist in securing your roofs. So invest in those where the need is. Different hurricane shutters and stuff that you can put up around your windows. We got a lot of glass or open area, so get some good hurricane shutters, and they don't have to be all the big fancy electronic ones that right. So a lot of stuff that we see when it comes to putting up some good wooden shutters, but make sure that they're bolted in. They're bolted in, and that's the key. What you put up, make sure that they're affixed solidly, because like I said, I've seen you're seeing damage and destruction in places that have buildings specifically built to withstand hurricanes at the highest end of the scale, and systems come through and they're no more gone. Yeah.
All right, good. So at this time, I'm calling on Nicholas Bedford as we get ready to take the questions now from those of our viewers, our listeners. And just reminding all of the folks, we are sponsored by TSR Construction. TSR Construction, call Sherwin, and you will get all of your stuff built. And I just want to let you know all those pictures speak volume to the work that Sherwin is doing, the quality work. So call TSR Construction for all of your building needs. Low Estate in St. George. And as we get ready to my co-host, Nicholas Bedford, as he gets ready to come in to ask all of the questions from the floor. So as he comes in, Nicholas, are you there, sir?
Hi, good night.
All right, he's there.
Yes, I'm very much here, Justin. I've been listening keenly for the last few minutes of the information that was being shared, and the comments on YouTube and the comments on the Zoom chat are really positive ones. Persons are happy to receive this information. And I want to thank you, Mr. Austin.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, we thank you for the information you've been sharing so far. We have a few questions, however, that have been coming in. And you mentioned the first aid kits a few moments ago. Persons are asking, what, in your opinion, are the top 5 things that you must have in your first aid kit? The top 5. What is your top 5 must-haves?
Must-have?
Aid kit.
All right. We're looking at you're likely to get cut, so you want something to stop bleeding, and you're likely, so you need some bandages, and bandages not only to that helps but also if something, you fall, a limb, something wrong with one of your limbs, you can bandage up your arm and keep your arm. So bandages should be in there.
Okay. So that's a bandage. You must have enough bandages.
Yeah, and all different size, right?
Sizes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
along with your cuts, you also need some plaster, right? Right. You should always have some scissors, right?
Scissors.
Yeah. Always have some scissors, right?
Okay.
And scissors can cut your clothing if you need to cut clothing, you can cut stuff, right? So who must have, yeah. And I'm thinking for everybody, you know, some people could take aspirin, some could take this, some can't take. So, you know, so but some sort of medication, some type of medication, some sort, whatever your pills are, I would suggest you put them in your first aid kit.
Okay, so the pills for hypertension and the pills for
For them, you know, you know,
as one item in one place.
and the one thing that you need, the one other thing that you're gonna need in there. Oh Lord, I give a pass on that.
Okay, no problem. No problem at all. And the other question is similar to this one. In your experience, after the storm has passed, it's the morning after, or well, it'll be the day after, immediately after. What do you find is the great need of persons who would have experienced a disaster like a hurricane or storm? What are the 5 top things that you find that persons really need most after a storm, a disaster?
A lot of it also depends on how they've been impacted. But
Yeah.
the first, people want some info. They want to know what's happened to the families if they're you know, if it's somewhere. So they want to know what's happened to other people. How is it impacted, right, around the place. Yeah, and not just in a nosy in a nosy type of way, but they're generally concerned about other people. So that's one. They want back the power. If electricity goes off, they want it back as soon as possible, right?
Would you recommend things like generators and
Very much so.
guys and keeping it? Because I remember with Hurricane Katrina and some of the others that they had over in the US when the dam burst, one of the things was a lack of power. They had their cell phones, the towers are up, but they could not get their phones charged. As simple as they could not get charged or power to charge the phones to be able to communicate with persons.
Yeah, so investing in generators, yes, I advocate that. You know, it worked for me just before I came out of Bermuda last year. We had 2 storms hit Bermuda back to back. And the day before the first storm hit, I bought a generator for my family because I had just had two young grandsons, right? And I said, well, if power goes, it's for them more than it's for me. So I invested in that, and I think that's one of the best investment that you can make, you know, when it comes to your hurricane preparedness.
Okay, so the ability to communicate is number 1 for you. And just to recap, there's also the demand for power, being able to have power.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 most, as from your experience, those are the 2 things persons want most after.
Yeah, because a lot of times, remember, they've already stocked up on the food, so you know you're not depleted your food source and your food supplies already. So you know so information is what you want. You want to know what's happening, right? You know, and actually what we find, you know, and I find this in Bermuda context now, you know, because I'm not going through the season here in Barbados, but it's that community spirit that comes to the front quite early. You know, we find people come out and they get involved in clearing the community very early before, you know, the government agencies come out. You know, because you are your first responder, not, you know, not the soldiers, not the police, not the light and power, right? You are your first responder. So when you come outside and you see a tree down, you start to move that tree, right? So it's stuff like that. So it's that helping hand that comes out very early.
Okay, thank you so very much. I have another question for you. You mentioned earlier in the question I was asked, how much water do we need? You mentioned 1 gallon per person per day is a good approximation. But if I want to purify something like rainwater, let's say I have barrels catching the rainwater or cistern. A lot of the houses now
Right,
have
yeah.
cistern. How do I go about purifying rainwater? Can I drink rainwater straight?
No, if you go outside and you look up, so you let it come. Now, as youngsters, that's something we used to always try. Let's go outside and see how much we can drink, right? But when it and I think a lot more pharmacies nowadays have purification tablets out there. So I think so having purification tablets in part of your emergency supplies, that's a good one. Again, but we can always recommend what water, specifically with rainwater, and especially with water that come out of the tanks immediately after rainfall. You know, boiling them first before you go straight to drinking. That would be the recommendation.
So therefore, you should not drink water that comes straight off the roof into your tank. You're saying it's possibly that can make you sick.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah. Again,
Why that?
what's blowing in when the storm system come around, you don't know.
Mm-hmm. I got you. This question just came in from a lady. She's asking, what should she do if she's in her house and her house top begins to go? I mean, she's seeing it lifting. What is the course of action? You're panicking. You don't know what to do. If you had to find yourself in a situation like that, what your course of thinking, your experience, your training?
How many, again, I will look at, because the way how rules are nowadays, and it may not be everything that lists one time, depending on where it is. So if you have another safe room in there that is protected, right? You really don't want to be running outside, unless you know where you're going. You got a direct path, and that path looks as secure as possible. But if that compromise, get out.
Just now, you mentioned safe room. What do you mean when you say safe room?
Oh, so I'm here in this bedroom. If the roof here goes, I may have 2 or 3 other bedrooms that I can go into, right? Some homes nowadays, people are building specifically with a space that, if something happens, this is my shelter space. It doesn't have a roof above me, but I have protection. I can go in there and the roof goes, but otherwise than that, I can, the house is not falling down. The roof is just gone. So I have some shelter within inside. If you can do that, by all means. If you can make it outside to a neighbor, that's the rec. But don't go outside and put yourself more at risk. That's the thing. Try not to put yourself more at risk.
Okay, so the safe room then could basically be any room in the house. I think I can remember hearing a suggestion, now that you mention it, years ago, saying that usually the part of the house that has the strongest walls, usually the support walls,
Yeah.
the ones you should try to seek shelter in.
Yeah.
That
But remember now with the roof going now, what's coming in. So yep. So now you're likely to got flooding in your house and stuff like that. So water's coming up now. So all these are the different things that you identify as, what is a hazard to you in your preparation and your emergency plan up front.
okay, that means then I should really have my go bike, my
Yeah.
go,
Always have that ready.
and
Yeah.
I also have, if I have a vehicle, make sure the vehicle has gasoline in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always the thing, Yeah, it's all about the preparation aspect. Make sure it's full of, and something you were mentioning also what happens immediately after a storm has passed. One of the things that most people and quite a lot of people like to do, they go like this, like see, right?
Ah, yes.
You know, the danger of that there also is that roads are not cleared. roads are not clear, so now you become an additional burden on the response, teams that are out there, right? You can go there and quite easily get yourself into a tangle, right? So again, so you're making it a little bit more difficult for those guys to do the job. So again, my advice, the minute a storm pass, don't go and see how high the waves are breaking down on the East Coast or down on the South Shore, right? Just stay home and assist around your community.
Or don't go swimming in the water.
No,
Okay, I have one final question for you, and then I'll turn you back over to Justin. This question has to do with training and becoming a useful volunteer, for the after in the event of a hurricane or storm. If I want to be a part of one of these disaster or emergency relief organizations or something like that, I see a skill or a knack that I have that I can offer. How do I put that out there and let people know, listen, I have XYZ skills, I am trained in so and so. I want to be a part of the volunteering and the rescue operation, whatever the case may be. How do I communicate that? Who do I talk to just make sure that what I have in terms of my possessions and my own equipment, or I may have specific skills. How do I know who to get in contact with to be a part of this volunteer situation to help in time of need?
Yeah, and the Department of Emergency Management on their website, right? You can go onto their website and they can connect you to the different district emergency organizations, the one that is in your area, right? So you go through the Department of Emergency Management and they'll connect you to the DO in your constituency. And what they do, they actually a form there that it actually has to, what sort of skills that you have. So they can clue you into, yeah, or we have Nicholas here, he's skilled in this, he's skilled in that, or we can even be a good member of the DO here in whatever constituency, St. Thomas, right? So he's a good man to have, right? And you get him from there. The training, yeah, they do a lot of different trainings, first aid is also one, things like search and rescue, we partner with them also in providing, what is called community disaster response team training. Right, so that's basically what you're trying to get into. You want to respond at your community level. So they offer that training. We partner with DEM in providing that training, and it's not just only in the physical stuff. What to do with first aid, how to go about using certain equipments and work as a team to rescue people and stuff like that. But it's also how can you assess damage in your area, how can you assist people who are, psychologically impacted by these systems? Because that's the biggest thing that is often, overlooked when it comes to disaster response and disaster planning, the mental toll and the psychological toll that it takes on people, right? Not only at the individual level, but at the community level. So these are areas though that you have scope. So again, your skill might be in good people skill, good counseling. So again, there's scope here for you.
Okay, Richard, Mr. Austin,
Richard is good.
I'm really happy that you've taken the time to come to share with us tonight, and you've answered our questions. There's just one more. I said that one was the last one. Just I have room for one more.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, Noel, Roosevelt Noel, he's just kind of a question or comment. He was just asking, he's saying, although we are looking at hurricane preparedness, are there other disasters we should be planning for? He's asking about the other disasters we should be planning for, in addition.
Right, to hurricane season. Yeah.
That's what we want, Justin.
Yeah. Well, we are in the midst of the biggest disaster that has hit Barbados, that has hit the globe in our lifetime. That's the COVID, So we can't let our guard down. We can't let our guard down in that context. right? So we still have to prepare for whatever tropical systems comes our way, but we still have to be mindful of all the other stuff that we've had to do and must continue to do for COVID-19. Uh, Within the Barbados context, flooding is always an issue. It doesn't have to wait to the hurricane season for a flood to happen up, right? So again, droughts. We are seeing what drought is doing to us. So I think we now have to shift as to how we can shape a response to drought. And that's all to do with how we protect our environment. What we're doing when it comes to our water resources, what it means when it comes to what we are growing, what we are doing with what we are using. Earthquakes, every time, we hearing these little tremors, we feeling these little tremors every now and then. So yes, we still have to be mindful of that. So those are the ones that really know that is still on our radar, right? So we can't forget them. And one thing about it, we can always predict with more certainty when a tropical system is coming our way. But stuff like the earthquakes and stuff like that, there's no prediction for those. Those will come right out of the blue. So all our preparations, that way say we must have a plan, and it must be a general plan, but we also have to be mindful of not it's just about a hurricane, but all hazards, and we have to and know the hazards that are likely in our area, right? So so we yes, cane fires, as opposed to when you look at California or places in Australia when it comes to wildfires, right? Those are something different, right? So know our hazards, and our hazards really, right? Earthquake is still always on our minds, and with earthquakes, what can happen with earthquakes? Tsunamis. So we and earlier this year there were some tsunami drills going on. So those things we are still preparing for all these different type of hazards. So good question, and yep, we stay prepared for anything and everything.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Austin. Justin, he's answered all of our Zoomers and the questions of our YouTubers. It's over to you again.
Excellent. Well done, Nicholas. Well done. I was there sitting about listening. I was very, very intrigued by the questions and the questions that you have. Thank you very much, sir. Now, so I'm gonna continue from where Nicholas left off. So let's talk about planning. Now, I have a question from a person who just WhatsApped me. So don't worry. I will ask your question to Richard. So we're looking at your planning now in your home. Now you're thinking about building a home. You're thinking about buying a piece of land. Now I want you to know you're here. Yeah. Now a lot of homeowners, we just see a development. We are happy with the development. We like the development because it's near to mommy or near to daddy, near to this body, near whatever. What are some of the things that we are to be mindful of when we are choosing where to live, given the context of this program?
I think what has happened and happened in a positive way for Barbados over the years is that the road system, our road system has made Barbados a smaller place, right? One thing you talk about, oh man, and let's use I gotta go St. Thomas, I gotta go St. Andrew. Man, how far up there is, right? But now with the road systems, we can get in and out a lot quicker than we used to, way back in the early 80s and stuff like that, and times before that. So right now, so no place in Barbados now is really far, right? So let's look at the landscape, right? We got some areas that are prone to land slippage, more prone to flooding than other areas. So those are the areas that you'll be considering when you're looking to build your home. Again, a lot of people know that coming to build, a lot of them might be getting a lot more up in age, they're more senior in age. So if you need access to certain things, are those things around, because in an emergency, access to, although certain things are no place in Barbados is far, but during an emergency, you want quick and ready access to certain services, to certain facilities, and especially in where you're impacted by a system where roads are impassable and stuff like that. You don't want it to be a struggle for you to get out and to get, medical attention in particular. So you're looking at stuff like that. Nowhere, you don't want things that where trees are likely to be falling on you, right? So sometimes we go and build it, we go and plant trees that now can become a hazard to you. But normally you got some good open areas where at least your fallen trees are not the hazard, right? And that's always something to worry about during hurricane season. It's trees falling, things being uplifted and dumping on you, branches breaking off, power lines are down and stuff like that. So it's stuff like that. Again, when you're looking at by the water side, if you're close to the water, storm surge, with the storm surge, bring the water up and take your patio, and take it away. You don't want stuff like that, right? So those are some of the areas, the physical landscape, first of all, what would be the one to look at, and then what is around there, right? There are no places that really gives you no more protection from the wind than any one other place. So we are generally much, open areas here in Barbados, and that's to our benefit also.
Right, excellent. And you know that listening to you, I was there thinking about, in life now, especially now, no decision is 100%. You can't. I don't see many things in this earth here where you can have a 100%. Yes, there's a pro on everything. Because if you look, you may say, well, okay, I don't want to live close to the sea, so I live in St. Thomas. But then you live in St. Thomas and then you realize that you don't get a lot of water. Your water always off. So there are no, even though you can try to protect yourself as much as possible, all we can do is try to mitigate as much as possible. We try to limit our hazard. Now let's go to a question from a colleague of mine who sent in something. This person said, this is a scenario. Person said, I live in Kingsland and the hurricane shelter is Foundation Secondary School. I have 5 young children and the house isn't safe. I have to take the necessary things to the shelter, like water, so on, etc. How am I to manage all of these things along with the young children? The rain is falling, no electricity, no phone. How am I to get to the shelter with my children and all of the required items? That's part A. Part B says, is there transportation available for the elderly or the disabled who will need to be transported to the shelters?
I think that's something now that will have to be worked through with you need to go to a shelter. Again, we don't want you to be trying to move to go into a shelter at the height of any system, right? Because that is going to compromise, that is going to put a lot of other people at risk also. Not only you that has to get help to get a shelter, but somebody has to come from somewhere to get you and then try to get back to wherever they are based, right? I know when it comes to whether it's the BDF or within the parameters of the DEM, when can they move around and stuff like that, they will try to assist people like that if they have to do it. Within the shelters itself, once the shelters are open up, the shelters don't really provide transport to go and pick people up and get them and bring them to a shelter. So a lot of stuff like that, it now depends on who's in your community, what your neighborhood is like, can they assist you? And that's one of the things I said earlier, make the shelter your last resort. And again, if that need is so dire, there's no way, any agency that can assist, that works under the permit of the DEM, they will leave a family up there stranded.
Okay, all right. So we're getting ready to wrap up now. So let's look, there's a question that was missed, so I will ask it very quickly. So see if you can answer also quickly, Richard. Related to GIS information, is there any particular details to look for to know if it's officially from GIS?
Well, aside from the logos and stuff like that, there are ways that people can validate, websites if they're authentic and stuff like that. Yeah, and there's some, depend on the different, whichever system that you're operating on, they can validate. So there's little tweaks and stuff in there. I can't remember what the GIS one is in particular, or government ones, but there's some, whether, G, gov.barbados.bb and stuff like that. Sometimes, things like that are the little differences that you can find. A lot of government websites will be, you've got barbados.gov.bb, whatever the case may be like that, rather than just saying something, say gas.com, right? For argument's sake, right? So these are some of the little ways that you can identify, you can identify if a site, is real, if it's real for sure. And the consistency, if it's being quoted by other reputable organizations, right? You can take it for, you can take it for that.
Okay, great. Now, as it relates to the question that was posed before, and in light of what we were discussing in terms of preparation, now let's look at the community, our community spirit. So it says to me, based on what you are saying, that we should keep our surroundings, especially now the rain is falling a lot, we should keep our surroundings relatively clean, tidy, make sure we weed as the there's a term that we use in Bajan parlance, to weed the areas, to take up all of the grass that will help with the flooding, and make sure that if we have wells and all those kind of things, those things are clean and thing, because you don't want a case where we become a hazard, because we as people can become hazards as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, or how we use what we have within our community, or misuse. I think when it comes to the hazard part, I think that's the better how we misuse, and treat our communities, right? So ultimately, it falls back on us, right? It's no stranger coming from outside that is doing these things. So again, yes, let us take care of our own, the physical aspects of our community. Yeah, let's do that. Government agencies, when they come around and cleaning the drains and cleaning up, those guys are doing that. They've been doing it before the season, came upon us, and they still come out and go about and doing them. But we got to do it ourselves, and again, not want that preparation, so that's being proactive. Don't wait for somebody, to come and do everything for you, right? And I think that's the message that, I would send out there. Be proactive in our preparations. We don't have to wait for a hurricane season to come upon us. We don't have to wait for anybody to come out here. As the parlance goes, we don't have to wait for a government truck to come around here and start to do something for we to do it ourselves, right? So be proactive. And again, immediately after a system pass, we are the first responders in the community. We know when somebody's house is impacted. We know, if up there's flooding before, we don't have to wait for a BDF truck to come around, and the roving team to come around to see what damage is being done in our area. And we can call and tell them, we don't have any damage in here, so don't send resources around here looking for damage when there is none. Where those resources could go to a community that needs it, right? So be proactive, both in planning and in the response.
All right, thank you very much, Richard. So given what you've said, do you want to add any parting things that you want to, for all the viewers, all the listeners, as we wrap up the program, your final thoughts on what we should do, given the hazards we have around us, all those things that we've discussed for the whole show. Just lay it out for us now as we wrap up the show.
You mentioned just now that, we are our own biggest hazard, and the way that we really become our own biggest enemy is in being complacent, right? Don't let's go back to this thing that, God is a Bajan, nothing is gonna happen here. And that gets complacent, it gets lazy. And then when that happens, mistakes are likely to happen. And when mistakes, when it comes to disaster management and disaster response, mistakes mean lives, and it only takes one system. It doesn't have to be, a Cat 5 or anything like that. It just takes one system to be a bad system for any country, right? And Barbados is no exception. So we don't have to wait for this big bad hurricane to come around once you have a loss in your family, you will feel it. Other parts of the country could go along about their business, but that person, that country, that area that's impacted, they will feel it. So let's not get complacent at any time about what can impact us. Prepare, plan, and be ready to respond. So get your training, stay informed, stay up to date, and be a neighbor's keeper. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can see that can pull us through, because government resources are going to go to so many different places if we are negatively impacted. So the more that you can invest in your own community, the easier and the better that you can rebound. And it's all about being resilient. So be one another's keeper, look out for one another, support one another, and we can rebound from, sometimes we can't, we physically cannot stop the storms from coming, but we can rebound if they impact us. And that's what we should be focusing our efforts on. Be in a position to rebound. And to do that, you must be prepared upfront, and you execute on the day when these things do happen, and you build resilient communities that way.
All right, well said, Richard Austin, well said. And one of the things that I have grown up in a community where we were community. We look out for one another. And one of the things that is important and sometimes is lacking in our society now is that community spirit. You're looking out for one another. You're helping out the elderly. You're reading around their homes. All of these are things that, based on what you have said, these are things we need to go back to as a church. We also have to look out for our members as well. So this is not only speaking towards somebody else, is looking at us as well. Our response as church members, looking out for our members as well. So on behalf of the St. Thomas District of Seventh-day Adventists, comprises of churches in Welshman Hall, Bel Air, and Jackmans, we really want to thank Mr. Richard Austin from the Barbados Red Cross coming here, ably giving us some tips, giving us some solutions, giving us some practical ways where we can prepare for hazards. Now, I just want to let you know some information quickly. The Barbados Red Cross Society information, 417-2727. And the number again, 417-2727. You can contact them at Facebook at Barbados Red Cross. The website is also barbadosredcross.com, barbadosredcross.com. And Richard also spoke to the fact that in September, they're starting back some training, in first aid. So I'm saying, all of my listeners, all of the viewers who are here, you need to be trained in first aid. That is important. It will save your life. All right. Also, I want to let you know we are also sponsored by TSR Construction. And we just want to let you know the producer is going to put that up right there. TSR Construction in Lower Estate St. George. So if you need your home certified, strengthened, and you need your house beautified as well, call Sherwin Walker, 241-0529. Sherwin Walker, our sponsor for the night. TSR Construction, 241-0529. Call Sherwin. And if my producer can quickly go to some of the pictures to show the lovely work from TSR Construction. If you want to build your house hurricane proof, not hurricane proof really, but hurricane strong.
Yeah.
Hurricane strong. Check TSR Construction, Lower Estate, St. George. Call Sherwin Walker, 241-0529 for those beautiful finishes. Now, really want to run out of time as we thank Sherwin. So let us pray. Father God, we thank you for a wonderful program. Thank you for Mr. Austin, who really came out, give of his time. This is a good community service work that he is doing at the Barbados Red Cross. And we as a church has a work to do in the community to go there and to let the community know about all of these things are important. Not only salvation, but also bringing folks and helping out one another and helping them know that Jesus asks us to go and to love and to care for each other. Father, thank you for this program. And as we close, bless us and have us to have a good night's rest. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you again, Richard. Thank you again, listeners. Thank you again, viewers. On behalf of the St. Thomas District of Seventh-day Adventists, my name is Justin Allen. on behalf of the Belia Church, the Benjamin Hall Church, and the Jackman's Church, we just want to thank you again. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you again.
Yeah. I'll be in touch.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yeah.
Have a good night, Mr. Austin.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night.